Alright everybody, hello there. This is CD Mangaka adding a supplemental video to the Master Ninja Mode walkthrough of Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, because one of the patch changes for the game was to Chapter 13, and the only thing the note said was they increased the enemy count, and through my playthrough of the level, there might have been one or two more enemies in a few more encounters, but what I can tell you for sure is that the stairway is back. This entire video, this like 9 minutes of footage that I have, is just that of my one successful take on this fight. This is basically what the original Ninja Gaiden 2's flavor was. This is what the gameplay would have been like. Just all these enemies coming at us. They are a bit tankier, just because I think they're still balanced around the Sigma 2 health thing, but Ryu is such a strong character with so many strong weapons that honestly isn't too big of a deal, but it is a slog to get through. And rather than re-record like the entire walkthrough guide that's out there, I decided to instead just show this fight in its own entirety. So basically, if you watch the old guide, that will, on the old patch, rather, this fight is a little outdated. This one is the updated fight. And I mean, it is hordes of enemies. This is just the first wave still. The entire first wave. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about like the strategy here. I wasn't really able to fully demonstrate some of the strategy because, as you might notice, this is a chapter challenge mode playthrough. I just finished my story mode playthrough of the game, so I wasn't actually able to, play through the story mode and get set up to demonstrate all this. So I had just jumped into chapter challenge mode, and because of that, my whole item situation was a little off. Like, I don't have a talisman of rebirth, whereas by this point of the game, you should have a talisman of rebirth. And I think that's actually incredibly important because this fight is so long, it could be so intensive on your resources, that I feel like this is a place where you should plan to spend a talisman of rebirth. I actually spent one in my original playthrough just by happenstance. I said, you know what, I really don't want to go through this fight again, and that's very much a mood here, and I had to brute force my way through without a talisman of rebirth. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about like the actual gameplay strategy as you play through this mission. What I like to recommend is open up with the Eclipse Scythe. The enemies will spawn at the top. They'll all run down at you from the top of the stairway. You can just charge a level 2 Scythe UT, and as you can see, it obliterates them. It kills them. Nobody's left surviving, and I would try to absorb all that essence. This fight is going to be amazing for farming up your essence. In this take that I had that was successful, with the amount of essence I absorbed, I made like 60,000 in essence, which once you have all 30 of your Crystal Skulls, that's basically 2 Talismans of Rebirth and some change. So we don't have to worry too much about whatever resources we invest in this fight. We will more than make up for that. And even in the old original playthrough I had, at this point I had all of my weapons upgraded completely. So you should not be hurting for essence if you've been able to successfully farm essence on your playthrough up to this point. Now, you can continually use the Eclipse Scythe, but if you start to get surrounded, that's where the Eclipse Scythe ultimate technique starts to fall off, just because it travels in that straight line, and if you're not hitting all the enemies, then its effectiveness gets greatly reduced. So, I'm showing off a couple different weapons throughout the gameplay clip. You saw me use the dual swords a little bit earlier. I switch over to the Tonfas here. I'm actually surprised I blocked so many shuriken, or got hit by so many shuriken, it knocked me out of my ultimate technique. You can see me popping Devil's Way Mushroom to stock up. I would highly recommend using your level 3 Windblades Nimpo here. If you're ever low on essence and you don't have like resources to start chaining ultimate techniques together and clearing out these hordes, definitely use your Nimpo here. There is a chest of Nimpo after this fight in the temple. So you can exhaust all your Devil's Way mushrooms and then some, and still be able to fully regenerate your Nimpo, which would be nice for like a chapter challenge mode thing. But the Eclipse Scythe, I think, might be like one of the better ultimate techniques here, but this is an instance where it's not so good, right? Like, I'm trying to aim it down the way, but once you start killing enemies, they all start spawning kind of like wherever around you, even jumping down from like the ceiling. So when they're not like in that straight line, the Eclipse Scythe ultimate technique starts to become less optimal. And then I would recommend things like for these white-robed ninjas, you can use the Vigorian flails, you can use the tonfas, you can use the dual swords. A lot of things that you can kind of go to. The dual swords, I think, are really good. They have super long active frames, So, I mean, it just keeps going forever. Pretty big hitboxes. You will constantly be killing enemies as well as delimbing them. But one thing you have to be careful about is when you're delimbing enemies, yes, it does slow them down so you can have time to get away, maybe charge up the next ultimate technique. But it also puts you a lot of risk because once they are delimbed, they're able to suicide attack you. Pretty much every death I think that I had in this playthrough was from kamikaze grabs that the enemies would use against me, right? But the nice thing, though, if they are delimbed, you can just go up and set up some obliteration techniques so you can try and stagger your essence absorb timings, right? Like there, I got 2 obliteration techniques. I absorbed the essence that was from enemies I've killed with ultimate techniques because those are more valuable in terms of the amount of money they give you. And then after that, I was able to use the obliteration techniques essence that was left over to set up my ultimate technique stuff. And if you ever get to a point where, oh no, I'm kind of out of essence or I'm surrounded, this isn't looking good, just pop a Nimpo. Be relentless with it because the enemies are so relentless against you. I mean, think about this. I'm still in this one fight. It's been like 5 minutes. Another tip I would give as well for this fight is if you're feeling like overwhelmed or you need to retreat down the steps. Go farther away from the other spawn points. It will buy you a little bit of reprieve. And as you can see here, I'm finally starting to get the enemies to kind of come at me from the top of the map. So I can just start spamming the Eclipse Scythe UTs. And there's so many enemies dying to this thing that the game itself is actually slowing down, which is pretty hilarious in my opinion. So we're still fighting this second wave of ninjas. I can't believe that Team Ninja did it. I think it's pretty awesome. And I wonder if this means that they'd be open to increasing enemy counts in some other parts of the game as well, just to increase the difficulty of some fights. I think like the Aqua Capital Chapter 6 would greatly benefit from something like that just because there's so much dead time traversing over water, for example. But I would really love to see more treatments like this. I haven't played Chapter 14 yet, so I don't know what the enemy hordes look like. And this is where I lost my mind, was the fact that they gave us the Incendiary Ninja battalion here. This is the hardest part of the fight because as you can see, they are constantly chucking shuriken at you. You know, these things that will knock you out of ultimates, that put a timer on you to act, everything like that. I would highly recommend you try to fight them around this clump doorway so you can get as many caught in your ultimate techniques as you can. The Eclipse Scythe is not really great against them. They will survive a hit from the Eclipse Scythe ultimate technique at full HP. So by this point, I would recommend using weapons that have like a strong level 1, like the Lunar Staff 360 or the Tonfas, because the Tonfas and the Lunar Staff will always delimb enemies. So at the very least, if you have to settle for a level 1, you can pop that level 1. Like, I'm almost dying right here because this is such an intense fight. And I say, you know what? I need to kill some enemies. Drop a Windblade's Nimpo. Retreat back. This essence isn't really worth a whole lot. So you can go ahead and just use all of that for any sort of ultimate technique, right? And yeah, go to town right here. The dual swords can work if you get the level 2s off, but if you're not able to get the level 2s off, the dual swords level 1 doesn't have a guaranteed delim attack on there, so you can really lose a lot of your momentum. And if you lose momentum in this fight, you're absolutely dead. Like, there's just too much for you to deal with, I think, without just being able to constantly chain ultimate techniques together. And hell, by this point, I would even put less of a strain on trying to absorb any of the ultimate technique kill essences. Unless you get like a Windblade's Nimpo set up like this, right? So I absorb those essences after I use the Nimpo because the first wave of essence was from the ultimate technique, so I want to get the high value from it. And then I was able to use the Nimpo kill essence, which was a lower value, to then get back into my ultimate technique span. And right there, right? Like I was able to still bust out with a level 1 ultimate technique that's still strong. I think I switched to the Gregorian Flails just to mess around. Try that out. You can definitely use the Gregorian Flails on the White Robe Ninjas, like I mentioned before, but against the Incendiary Shuriken Ninjas, no way. Just doesn't really do a whole lot. There's no guaranteed delim attacks until the very end. It's very flashy, very cool, but you need very effective ultimate techniques right here. So like you can see that these guys are taking like the full brunt of like the extended ultimate technique here, and then I just get a kill for 2, right? Just not strong enough. I switch over to my dual swords here. Because it's Chapter Challenge mode, they are Blades of the Archfiends, which just means that they do have a few extra combos, which don't really matter right here because we're primarily just relying on cycling through ultimate techniques. I was able to absorb that essence. I figured I had like one more Nimpo I could use, but I was able to get away, charge up another level 2. Feel free to spam Nimpo right here, guys. Again, use all of your resources. Plan on using all of your items here because it's such a long run back. I mean, imagine it, right? Like, we're 8 minutes, 9 minutes into this take. If I died right here, I have to play another 9 minutes of a very intense fight. You don't want to have to try and reset your progress here. So plan on using everything. Stock up through your health. Stock up through your Nimpo. Have a Talisman Rebirth on hand. Feel free to spend it here. This one take, I actually gained like 60,000 essence, like I mentioned. So farm this fight, use some of these tips, and you will get through the staircase just fine. It's so cool to have this kind of original Ninja Gaiden 2 flavor encounter back, and I would love to see Team Ninja add more of it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you in other guides.